Was there tech that didn't float your boat? What was anything that you said, yeah, I can't, that's not.
No, because I want all of it. Like,
Yeah.
She wants it all.
I wanted the Cadillac package. I want
Yeah.
like all the AV. I want all the, the speaker systems. Yeah, so it's all impressive to me. It's just, is it, can I afford it?
Right,
That's the question.
But if it's
Do I not get a pool, right?
Right.
That's sort of what it is.
But if you had all those options up front, then you can do the trade-offs.
Exactly.
It's when
Exactly.
something you like more than something you've chosen earlier that you can't undo. That's
Correct.
where you fall
Exactly.
apart.
And
Well,
then the
Vince
roughing.
has many times, sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. Vince has many times before, depending on what the budgets are that he's trying to work within, if he noticed that something like this is very important, and let's just say you have a $400,000 budget for your lighting, your AV, your control, your shades, he might say, look, let's shave a little bit off the house so we can make this work within your budget.
Exactly.
Knowing that stuff all up front would help.
Exactly.
Right.
We get a lot of requests nowadays for leak detection. We have just a few of the tech things that we're seeing in our market. A lot of leak detection because we're having more and more people traveling and being out of their house for significant amount of time. We've had 2 floods in houses that are in our office right now where we're helping the clients fix it because they didn't have little water bugs that could have been in there, so they're immediately on it. We do we're doing a lot more solar and solar pre-wires, and even we've had our first 2 houses for Tesla tiles. So we're definitely getting into these categories more than we used to. I was thinking about it last night. And I would say that 10 years ago, 1 out of every 5 houses that we were doing in our office had a tech component to it, usually a lighting control component. And now I would say we're probably 3 out of 5. And I wouldn't be surprised if in 2 years' time we're 4 out of 5. So it's definitely coming. We have to deal with it. We have to find a way. Our profession has to find a way to do our jobs, frankly.
So this shouldn't come as any surprise to you. I just moved myself up earlier in the process.
Shocking.
And you're pink.
It was
So you're a
it was
little-
purple before. It looks pink on this screen. But yeah, I want you to make sure you see that. Vince.
I see it. That's right.
And I think we should probably move the builder over there too, based on your comment. I think that ideally the builder would be up front as well as part of that initial design team. So that's just sort of the summary of what we talked about. There's one more slide here, I think. Can everybody see that okay?
There'll be a quiz on this one later, so study this one up.
This is a document that sometimes we put together depending on the complexity of the project, just to say who's responsible for what along the way.
Wow.
We usually don't do this until it's early. And the far left column in each color is the technology designer component of it. And essentially we touch all of these things on this list at some point as a tech designer. But there's other trades too that have check boxes next to their names, which is where the collaboration has to take place. And that's where these projects either are very successful or very unsuccessful. If we do a good enough job of identifying all the players, what their roles are, who needs to collaborate with who, get as many decisions made and specifications done up front as we possibly can, we can have a very successful project. It can move smoothly, and we can work, not to worry so much about timelines. If we don't do this, or we're late to the party and we can't be there early in the process, these things have to be sort of retroactive. And I think that's when it gets really, really challenging. I did throw together some engineering document samples for you. I'm not going to flip through them. You guys have probably seen a lot of these before. But these are the types of documents that we typically provide on a project like this. And again, the earlier the better. The last thing we want to do is be building these drawings the day before we rough in a house or the day after, which would be even worse.
Yeah, and my experience too is when you're, do you pull all, well, you're an electrician, so you're pulling all the line voltage in the house too, or you're not doing that? Are you not doing?
That's an interesting conversation. Yeah, typically we would do that. We'd be, as the electrical contractor, we do everything.
Because I know that, like if you go out to bid with an electrical plan and then you start adding wires for the tech as an afterthought, that's not an always fun conversation to have. And the electricians, they've got you, I don't want to say they got you, but it's harder to negotiate when you're adding things on to the project over that period of time. So the plans are important, right? So I just walk, if you want to just go through quickly these.
Okay. I mean, I can't see what they are from my eyes are terrible,
Yeah.
but you get the idea. There's floor plans for lighting controls and AV equipment and probably landscape speakers and things like that.
And so you've got traditional lighting, you've got lighting for products like Ketra, and you've got like a DMX lighting. What's the impact and cost of those three technologies to the electrical bid?
Well, again, I think the interesting part isn't so much the impact of the cost, it's when it happens. So if there's an integrator, an electrical contractor, and a builder on a project, and the builder came to the project because he bid the job early, he bid to the architect specification. So there were X number of fixtures, there were X number of switches, there may have been or may not have been a lighting control system involved in that bid. There was a number to the builder, and that number went from the builder to the homeowner. There was an expectation of what my electric should cost. And the integrator jumps into the party late and says, oh, we're putting in a whole Lutron lighting control system, we're gonna use color-changing fixtures, we're gonna put in all this other stuff. And Mr. Electrician, here's the list of stuff you have to change in your bid. Some are deletions, some are adds, some are just reconfigurations of things. The electrician now has an opportunity, right? Which is, I can be a good partner to my builder because it's the guy I work with all the time, and I'm gonna take good care of them and be honest about this and tell you exactly how it impacts me. But I can also say, wait a second, this is hard, right? This is what I can't do this without thinking about it. I've got to spend time on it.
Right.
In addition to the actual labor and material, it's my brain power and my time on the site to make sure I follow the plans that are given to me by somebody else. So my price now goes up too.
How about the impact on choosing a trimless fixture to the labor to install it and maybe the labor to plaster the
I would
ceiling?
ask Greg and
Yeah.
Vince about this.
I mean, is that so Greg, I mean, from a builder standpoint, trimless fixtures, I believe they're a little more labor to install, a little more effort in the plastering. Is that a bigger issue?
Yeah, look, I guess it depends on the size and the number of fixtures, but a lot of those things are still getting roughed in at the same point.
Yeah.
It's no different from, Vince and I had a conversation a week ago about how we were going to trim windows, with return jams or, returning the drywall or using wood. A lot of that, as long as it's roughed in, it does take a little bit more time. I mean, every builder in that room knows what a rotozip is and what damage it does to lights and everything. So it's going to require the hangers and the finishers to slow down a little bit. And, certainly will give them an opportunity to put more money in their bid to finish it. So, but
from
the
a
process
builder,
isn't really different.
So from a builder's, I'm going to shift gears slightly. From a builder's standpoint, when you get into some of the newer technology, let's take Windows, for example, and now you've got windows that tint for UV protection or privacy. You've got shades in between windows, and there's technology in there. Where is the intersection of the integrator versus you and whoever's going to hang a smart door or a smart window? How do you bridge the gap there?
I mean, in my past, it was always late. I have a client that actually both Sean and Sarah know that, he didn't think about the shades. He's right down on the water in Baltimore City. Didn't think about the shades early on. His designers didn't drive him in the right direction. And we had the whole house drywalled before he decided. So he put battery-powered shades in. And they were loud. They were bulky. They looked terrible. And, then we had to go back in after the fact, after the whole house was done, because by the time you measure new shades, get them manufactured, he's living in the house at this point. So now we make Swiss cheese out of his house again to run low voltage wiring to control, Lutron shades. And we also had a door in there to his master suite that was a steel fabricated door with glass that we had the tenting on it where you hit a remote and it frosts the glass. Same thing. We had the entire door fabricated before it ever came to him. Oh, we ought to do this. And then we had to turn on, take all the glass back out. We had to drill, tiny holes everywhere to run control wires to every single glass panel. I mean, it was just torturous. Yeah. Getting somebody in to go over all those, as Sean said earlier, 85 pages of different things for them to consider, I think is huge. And again, it benefits the builder. He's going to make more profit on more items in the house. It's going to help the installer. The integrator is going to make a portion on it. I mean, and the homeowner is going to get what they want.
Right.
So Yeah, I definitely think it needs to come in much, much earlier because there's only so much Vince and I know. And the technology is changing so fast. I can't begin to bother myself with, more than trying to stay on top of the sticks and bricks of building the house. Vince and I are finishing a project that's been going on for over 5 years. It's a 22,000 square foot house when it's all done. And this client wants the best of everything in his house. And, we put first generation Ketras in the house, and then the technology changed. Sean, you can correct me if I'm wrong. The technology changed after the first phase as we got towards the end. So then we had to consider, are we going to rip out every single Ketra fixture in the house, or, and now drywall work, paint work, are we going to put different bulbs in that work? And he wanted to control everything with his smartphone. He travels the world frequently, so he wanted to be able to handle everything at his house by his phone. We had the leak detections everywhere. I mean,
So Sarah, what advice? You're at a cocktail party and you meet someone who's about to endeavor on a project like this. What do you tell them about your experience to encourage them to do something that you think they'll benefit
I
from?
mean, first I would refer everyone around here because I have a great team, but I do. I'm really fortunate. I hired really good people, and honestly, that is kind of the lesson is that
Hire good people, number one.
hire good people, but also like I'm looking to you for you to help tell me not what I need to do, but make suggestions. And so as part of the process, I'm a very sort of linear, process-oriented person, and that's why I loved when Vince kind of gave me that document and said, here's the process and involvement, because there are so many moving parts. And again, I'm beating the horse here, but just having the conversation, I think, early about all the considerations on tech and AV, I think would have been
So go
super.
early. And so what would you tell a builder who had a client and the builder thought that things weren't being addressed early enough? What could they say to the client that didn't sound like, that would encourage the client to act
So hard.
in a positive way?
I mean, I'm in the customer service business too, so it's very hard to have these conversations. They're your client, right? And even though you may know what they need or what they need help with, or it may be outside of their budget, and you have to sort of deliver that news to someone. I mean, I think the best thing that you can do, and I think Vince was alluding to this, is just, you don't know what you don't know, right? And the minute that you own that and you just say, like, this is not my area of expertise, but there are people that do have it, and I'm gonna lean on them, and or, it's not gonna turn out the way that you want it to, and I'm just gonna be transparent with you. Like, your budget's not gonna support that. That's not your fault, that's not Greg's fault, that's not Sean's fault. It's just transparency throughout the process, I think, is a big thing. And then secondarily is just, again, you're like, if you're in over your skis, just tell me, and that's just not, you didn't hire me to do that. This is my role, this is my lane, this is what I will help you with. But if you want this, then you need this.
Yeah, certainly. Okay. Greg, Vince, Sean, any other last comments?
I think you should build a practice house. Like, do one first, see how it goes, and sell
There
it.
Are you
go.
suggesting that's my house? Are you gonna pay for it?
All right. Well, first of all, thank you. Sarah, thank you very much for coming and sharing your experiences. Vince and Greg, appreciate your participation. And Sean, as always, thanks for sponsoring this session. We have another minute. Any questions or thoughts before we wrap it up? Yeah, Greg.
I think the trust package is important for, I don't need that. The trust package is important for shading, but really important for lighting and the reflective ceiling plan. So does the lighting designer or whomever work around the trusses, or do we work the trusses around the RCP?
Most of our lighting consultants that we work with are knowledgeable enough that they can actually be part of that conversation when they're looking at a framing plan. They know what they're looking at, and they can even make suggestions to us about turning the framing for this or that. But honestly, the architects, I think, are the ones, that usually start that process, because I know in our case, the engineer works for us. So we have a nice fluid relationship and communication, about turning things, making things shallower. But how many, 10 years ago, we always used to mislocate recessed cans, and we always used to have bad shade pocket problems. And I think that's one of the things that's getting much better, at least in our market. The architects are really starting to take a concerted effort at not screwing that up.
All right,
Yeah,
thank
Vince,
you, everybody.
you-
This concludes this morning's session. Next step, you'll find your group leader outside, and you've got your boardrooms. Our next presentation at lunch is in the high-volume room. It's with the high-volume builders, the big 7, so it won't be in here. It'll be next door. And I'd like to thank everyone, the panelists, and Sean and Bravis. Appreciate it. Thank you very much.
Good job.